Hey everyone, welcome. I'm down here in my wormery and I've already got my yellow buckets out here on the bench to be fed. You can see they're all numbered, numbers 1, 2, and 3. And like we do usually, we just come in here and we give each of them an equal feeding, and hopefully it won't take too long. I am a little pressed for time, so I'm going to do my best to make this a quick job. So let's get to work. It almost seems like making a statement about how quickly I need to get this done is predestining the system to me goofing off and taking forever. So let's see if we could break that. So now, one of the key things I'm applying to all my systems is this solution of, it's the mosquito dunks. It's the stuff that you put into your pond or into places where you know there's going to be standing water. And might as well just soak this coffee filter too. I'm not really coming up with any sort of a fancy method for this. I just want to get about 1/3 of this jug or plastic container dispensed into here in some form. And now as we come in here to inspect things, we'll blend it in. So this coffee filter showed where we last fed. The last feeding was an assortment 14 days ago, and it's been a 14-day interval between feedings here for quite some time now. It was strawberries, bananas, berries, blackberries, all kinds of really good stuff down here. So my guess is that they've probably done a number on that last feeding, but I always like to check before we give them the next feeding to see how they're doing as far as leftovers go. But geez, 14 days later, I could certainly imagine maybe a piece of banana peel or the stem of a banana still being left. But wow, okay, I was a little bit surprised there at how deep I had to go to, and I didn't even reach the bottom, so I was trying to probe down to the bottom, but I never even made it. I didn't quite realize how deep we were getting down here within this container. Makes it difficult, I gotta say. So I'm just pulling out stuff from the very, very bottom. I don't know how else to get a good sample or a good look at what's going on down there other than excavating some. Pulling out a little core sample from right down in the middle of the feeding area. Lots of castings, couple worms hanging out. Nothing big enough in between my fingers to be, I don't know, sensed as a leftover until now. Here it is, okay. I knew I would find a banana peel. 14 days, you know, the worms will put a pretty good dent into a banana peel, but they'll most likely not polish it off. At least not in my systems, the way I've got stuff set up. I mean, in the past I've run systems where I had, you know, huge densities of worms and just tons and tons of worms that could probably compost a lot quicker than anything I've got going on right now, and that was fun. Maybe someday I'll be able to get to that point again, but I think for now I'm set up pretty good with just a bunch of systems that are nothing out of the ordinary, really. I mean, just a whole bunch of fairly ordinary worm bins. Okay, so we got a collection of fairly worm-free stuff up here on the top. It's dry. I think we'll just use that as sort of like an under layer, if you will, before we drop in today's food. Everything that I'm giving them is coming straight out of the freezer, is frozen. Over here too, I just figured let's check the bottom. I don't remember what was fed on this side of the bin. Here again, I believe it was fruits, maybe banana peels then too. Going back here, not 14 days, but 28 days, almost a month, to the last time that this side of the bin got fed. And if it was banana peels, it wouldn't be surprising to find worms in there still trying to polish off what remains of it. It's getting real tricky to arrange things in a system that's got this much stuff in it now, because if I was going to use this bedding over here, I've now covered it up with the excavated material. So let's see if I can get through this feeding gracefully and maybe use it as a model for doing the next couple of them a little bit more efficiently. So I've just got a whole bunch of stuff here. It's because it's frozen solid, it's a whole bunch of tiny fragments of stuff. It's shavings and everything, but they're so frozen that I can't even really break them apart. And it's, you know, in my my systems I usually feed in such a way that I try to break up stuff like that, but if you can't do it, you can't do it. The worms will break it up over time. Alright, I don't want to dish out too much. That's about 1/3 of what I bought down here for them. Seems like the portioning I've been, you know, selecting for these systems has been pretty good. They've been, as you saw, doing away with the majority of what they're given. It's not an unusual amount of leftovers that they're leaving behind. So I think things are working pretty good in here. And I also like the fact that I was a little bit surprised by just how much stuff's piling up inside this bucket. I mean, if it is, I'm not sure the capacity of this bucket. Maybe it's a 5-gallon bucket, but it's definitely at the halfway point, if not beyond. So now we're marking over here to show where we last fed with the veggies. Get things covered up. Move on to bucket number 2. Okay, so now let's see if we can pick up the pace here a bit, because I'm on a fairly tight schedule today, and I gotta get the heck out of here. So I'm kind of glad we did a rehearsal there, because now I know that I want to drench, dispense, save enough for the last. Not that it's a big deal, because I've got a whole bucket of this stuff behind me. Let's do a quick check on the strawberries and blackberries and banana peels that they got last time. I think there was coffee added as well, but here too, if we find a banana peel, that would be kind of expected. I doubt we would find any blackberries or strawberries. I'm sorry, I keep leaning on the spot where the two buckets are bumping into each other, and I keep popping the plastic, making that annoying sound. So here again, we've got the stem of a banana, but almost as if they've done greater damage here. I can't really account for the number of worms in each of these systems. We took one bin of European nightcrawlers after the system had finished, and we harvested the castings. The worms that came out of that system were divided up into 3 little groups, and we put them into these 3 buckets. So we've really got kind of a third of a typical worm bin of mine in this system here as its population. So not too surprising that we're not finding a lot of leftovers of that last feeding from the last 14 days ago. So this system's now in excess of 150 days of age. Looks like we've got some scraps of coffee filters down here. Not everything is shredded finely. Sometimes I just throw in larger chunks of bedding. Over here too, in the other bin, we felt pretty good moisture. Here it's almost exactly the same. Almost exactly the same kind of turnout as far as the worms are concerned. And perhaps this bin is a little bit more heavily populated if it's in fact doing away with its portions more quickly than the other one was. But I'm never quite certain about that. Alright, let's get these little guys fed. So here too, I've got some of this here just as a little bit of an insulator. Now, let's see if we can... Oh, here again, these chunks are pretty big, and you can tell from the shape too. They kind of sat at the bottom of the bag, melted a little bit. Some of these juices around them kind of encrusted everything into a block, so it's frozen solid. I can't do much with it. We'll just have to dispense it as is. And I did bring down one cucumber to make sure each of the systems gets one of those. And I think we've pretty fairly divvied out the food, leaving, yeah, I think we've left just enough for the last system to get fed. So let's mark where we last fed. I don't know if you saw my video from the last time we checked in here 2 weeks ago. I had goofed up on the positioning of this feeding zone indicator in 2 of the 3 systems. I don't know where my mind was, but I, for whatever reason, just seemed to plop the feeding zone indicator down anywhere, not indicating where we actually fed, but rather just, I guess, whatever was convenient at the time. I was obviously not paying attention, but I did actually come back downstairs later and correct the matter. So we are actually checking the last feeding in the proper corner, which is over here. So here we got our BTI portion. It actually seems like the stuff would come in pretty good here as far as helping the stuff on the very top surface moisten up a little bit, because it is kind of dry. But we've never used plastic coverings. We figured, let's see how we can fare without plastic coverings to help us retain the moisture in the system. And I'll admit, the whole system is a little bit drier, all in all, than most of my systems are. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, because the worms are still hanging out everywhere within it. And I also feel like the stuff is a lot more crumbly throughout, perhaps as a result of just always having the ability to ventilate and evaporate off moisture if needed, rather than having it all stifled down with a sheet of plastic covering. So I think this was kind of an interesting test. It's a little bit more like what I used to do when I first started out. I only adopted the coverings of plastic later on in the game, and they work great, and that's the reason I use them. But it does seem like there's the time and place for them, if you will, if that makes sense. So here too, now we're checking the spot that was last checked in on 28 days ago. Well, not that it wasn't checked in, because every time we come in here we always check in the opposite corner of the one that we're feeding. But still, whatever was administered onto this side of the container 28 days ago as they're feeding is probably, for the most part, history anymore. So here again, awkward because of the tight space constraints, but I think we're more or less done here. Got the BTI went in. On this occasion, we didn't add any grit with our feeding. I don't think we didn't even really add any bedding either. We just kind of recycled bedding. I guess all in the interest of just giving me the opportunity to keep to our 14-day interval between the feedings in these systems, which we've kept to quite nicely for quite a while now. But I just didn't want to include all the bells and whistles in the hopes that I might be able to get the job done quickly, so I can get on with my stuff. So that's it for the video, everyone. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, as always, please don't forget to leave me a quick thumbs up before you go. Is my hand fitting into this little bucket? I think you get the idea. So hopefully you enjoyed it, and if you did, please leave me a quick thumbs up before you go. And if you haven't done so already, please also consider subscribing to the channel. All right, everyone, have a great day. Thanks for watching. Bye now.